Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to introduce our guest today. 37 years ago, I began my work as pastor of the Broadview Baptist Church in Temple Hills, Maryland. Following the first worship service that I led, a striking, outgoing man in his mid-30s introduced himself to me at the door as he was leaving worship. He said, "I'm Steny Hoyer." Steny and Judy became wonderful friends of ours. My wife Peggy and Steny were co-teachers of an adult Sunday school class. We have journeyed through a lot of life together, celebrated weddings, births of grandchildren, grieved at funerals, and campaigned for public office. In 1981, a vacancy was declared in the House of Representatives for Maryland's 5th Congressional District. Steny ran for that office. Peggy and I did door-to-door campaigning for Steny because votes are important. Steny won that election and was sworn into Congress on June the 3rd, 1981, and he has been representing Maryland's 5th Congressional District for 33 years. Votes are important to Steny, and Steny is important to voters. Currently, Steny serves as the House Democratic Whip for the 113th Congress. He is the second-ranking member of the House Democratic leadership. He is charged with mobilizing the party vote on important legislation, acting as a liaison between members and the Democratic leadership, coordinating strategy within the caucus. He also plays a key role in shaping House Democrats' legislative priorities and in delivering the Democratic message. Remember, votes are important to him, and he is important to voters. Steny is a valued friend. He's an outstanding politician who brings honor and respect and integrity to the term politician. He is a person for whom votes are important. A person who knows how to count votes, knows how to whip votes in the United States House of Representatives. It is my honor and privilege to welcome my friend Steny Hoyer to the best Democratic club in the state of Florida. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I am so pleased to be here. Howard and Peggy, as Howard just told you, have been two of my closest friends in life. He was the pastor of our church when Judy and I taught our Sunday school. Peggy was in our class, and Peggy taught sometimes, and Judy taught sometimes, and I taught sometimes. It was a wonderful group, and it was not just at church. We visited one another's homes. We had picnics together and did all sorts of great things together. They are wonderful, wonderful people, and you are lucky in the Villages, and you are lucky in this club to have the Roberts family with you. They are really the best. Now I've read a little bit. I know all of you came to the Villages. Howard and Peggy have a wonderful home. I've ridden around. I'm a golfer, so I'm a little envious of having 7 million holes. And for those 7 million holes, you have 7,100,000 golf carts. It's an amazing operation here. Now, but we read up, and you can see a couple of my security team are here, who are my dear friends, and they've been with me. Jason's been with me about 12 years, and Matt's been with me a shorter time, but what, 8, Matt? About 9 years. We run up on the Villages. So they said, well, the security team better come with us. And they had a little conflict, and they said, look, why don't you wear one shirt? That'll fool them. So, when I walk out, they say, oh, it's one of us. They will be wrong. Votes
are important to America. That's what votes are important. Votes are important to America. You know, when Howard called me, he said, come on down and speak to our Democratic Club. Now, I don't know how many of you have been members of your Democratic Club back home. But when I hear about a Democratic Club, you should clap, and I'm glad you were members back home, wherever that home was. But when I hear Democratic Club, you know, I think 25, 35, 45 people will come together and, you know, I said, of course I told Howard, as he just told it, absolutely, but I'm glad to come down, we'll come down. But because you meet, I guess, once a month on Saturday, it's been real tough to get the schedule correct, but we've stayed after it, and Howard's become a dear friend of my scheduler. And she says, who is this Howard Roberts who we keep wanting to do this? It's awfully complicated for a Democratic Club. And I said, no, he and Peggy are very, very dear friends of mine. And then Howard told me, no, he said, I think there can be 300 or 400 people there. I said, well, that's a large number. And he was absolutely right. And I want to thank each and every one of you. I say, what do you think are in this room, Bob?
500.
Florida was 500. Florida was 500. 500 the other way, and the history of America would have been changed. 500. 500 would have changed America. Would have had the person who got 500,000 more votes than his opponent, George Bush. But 5 people said, no, we're ending the election. It's over. Bush is the president. One of my proudest moments in the Congress of the United States is that what's his name? I hear the phone ringing. Is that Mr. Morse on the phone? Mr. Morse is calling saying he's got 5 more seconds, the microphone's being shut off. Five people said the election is over. We're not going to count the votes anymore. We're not going to see whether they're hanging chads or for Gore or for Bush. The election's over. So votes matter. But what I was saying is one of the proudest moments for me as an American, as a member of was I was sitting about 10 feet from Al Gore, about 12 feet from Bill Clinton, and about 20 feet from George Bush. When on January 20th of 2001, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court stood up on the west front of the Capitol. And at that moment, the person who was the most powerful person in the world, who controlled the most powerful military on earth, without a gun being fired, without violence occurring, gave up that power to the person who got 500,000 less votes than Al Gore. But because we are a nation of laws, that great power held by Bill Clinton in the 30-second time frame was transferred to George Bush. What a magnificent country we have. I was sad. That was not my choice. But I was proud of my country, proud of our people, proud of our Democrats who thought that the election had been taken from them, notwithstanding the fact that votes counted and we got more than the other guy. But our Constitution says, no, we have electoral votes. And you can argue that one way or the other, but that's what the law said. And we followed that law. It's a great country. It's the greatest country on the face of the earth. I've been to 60 or 70 countries around the world. America is the greatest land on the face of the earth. Is there anybody in the room that's 90 years or older? One. To him and those of you who do not admit it, you, sir, are probably the only one in the room that really remembers the Depression. Some of us were born, we're in our 80s, sort of the tail end. I was born in 1939, I'm 75 years of age. But we don't remember that from December '07, the last year of the Bush administration, we went through and continued into '09 and into '10, the deepest depression. We called it a recession, the Great Recession. It should be called the infamous recession that any American had experienced, except those who were in their 90s or are in their 90s. And the manifestation of that for our public was deep anger, disappointment, disaffection, depression, psychological, not economic, but economic caused the psychological. Deep depression. President Barack Obama, historically, was elected President of the United States. We were talking this morning as well. I don't know why he's the first African-American president, as opposed to the first Caucasian-American. He's half of each. But it is an interesting comment on the psychology of our country, and indeed all the world, that likes to make distinctions. We pledged allegiance to this flag, one nation under God, indivisible. We spend a lot of time in America every day making sure that we are divisible, that we are divided, that we are set one against the other. You see that in Washington, D.C. We had an election in that 2010 where that disaffected, angry, disappointed, fearful electorate went to the polls, confrontation, who are fundamentally unwilling to compromise. You're in this room because you've got good friends in this room, you have fun together, you do things together, but you're in this room because you care about your country, your family, your children, the future of our country. That's why you're in this room. That's why you're wearing blue shirts. To tell people that I believe that my government is a positive force for good. Does it always do the right thing? No, it's human. You know, Howard and I would say, all of us have come short of the glory of God. We're all sinners. Not because I'm giving a political speech or a sermon, but we have all failed perfection. And government fails perfection because it's made up of human beings. And so it's necessary for the electorate to be constantly vigilant to make sure that we're doing as well as we can do. And that's why you're wearing these blue shirts. And if you're not wearing the blue shirt, that's why you have a blue psychology. Not the blues, but a vision for our country. Of an indivisible country. And frankly, Democrats have paid the price of being the advocates of an indivisible country, where distinctions are not based upon race or color or gender or other artificial distinctions. Martin Luther King taught us to focus on the content of character. What do people do? How do they treat you? What contribution are they making to a better community, a better society? That's what we want to focus on, an indivisible country, a country that is together. But in 2010, we had an election that was a divisive election. We would be myopic and unrealistic if we did not say that some of that did not relate to the president's race. But it's not all about the president's race. It's about feeling that government has let people make their earned money. And in some instances they have. And we Democrats need to acknowledge that. We need to acknowledge that we want to spend their money effectively and efficiently and with great care. But we want to make sure that we have a country that understands that, unlike when I grew up, and I'm older than Howard and Peggy by a number of years, and older than some of you, and maybe some of you are my contemporaries. But if you are a contemporary of mine, you grew up in a country and graduated from high school in the 50s and went to college in the 60s. You grew up in a country that had hegemony of power, hegemony of economic status. There was no real competitor to America in the 50s and 60s or 70s. We were it. And we didn't have to be concerned. The Cold War was on. We were concerned about nuclear holocaust so that there was not a world free of fear. But it was a world in which there was no doubt in our mind that tomorrow for America would be better. And it would be better for our children. And those of my generation never gave a second thought to the fact that we wouldn't get a job and we wouldn't make more than our parents and we wouldn't have more than our parents. Not because every one of us would have had that, but because we believe that. We're now in an era where that's not the case. America is still the biggest, by far, economic power in the world. China may be coming up, but it's not close in so many different ways. Nor is India the largest democracy in the world. But America is challenged. Challenged to create the kinds of jobs that our people need. Challenged to make sure that as we have become a more heterogeneous society, that we learn how to live together in peace, productivity, and positively, and reach out to one another and treat one another again, as King said, based upon the content of our conduct. That's what, in my view, our party stands for. That's the glory of our party. That's the essence of our party. I want to read you something that is pretty tough. But I think it says where we are. And you need to know where you are so you can get to where you want to be. Mann and Ornstein say this in a book that they wrote 2 years ago. We've been studying Washington politics in Congress for more than 40 years, and never have we seen them this dysfunction. In our past writings, we have criticized both parties when we believed it was warranted. Today, however, we have no choice but to acknowledge that the core of the problem lies in the Republican Party. The next paragraph is the most powerful paragraph in my view. The GOP has become an insurgent outlier in American politics. It is ideologically extreme, scornful of compromise, unmoved by conventional understanding of facts, evidence, and science, and dismissive of the legitimacy of its political opposition. And the congregation said, Amen. That is the underlying cause of the dysfunction you see in the Congress of the United States. Democracy works. And when people ask me, Congressman, when are you guys going to get together in Washington? When are you guys going to work together to make progress for our country? And you know what I tell them? I look them in the eye and say, as soon as you do. Democracy, uncompromising people to the Congress of the United States. No one ought to be surprised that you get an angry, confrontational, uncompromising Congress. So votes count. Howard is right. We need to, as a party, but much more importantly, as a country, come to grips with the fact that our view, which we hold to, of what we ought to be doing and what is right, is important. but that democracy is based upon the principle that we make better judgments collectively than we do individually. Fundamentalism, and Howard and I, and Baptists, there's a significant degree of fundamental belief in our church, as there is in the Catholic Church, as there is in other churches. The Muslim faith, the Jewish, there are certain fundamental principles. And you hold to those principles. But in a democracy, as in a family, if it's going to be successful, needs to consider and be considerate of the views of others. And if a democracy is going to work, it works because others are prepared to come together and to compromise. Because I'm 75, I need these, so I'll pick them up. There is an unwillingness to do that in Congress. Why? Not because our Republican colleagues in the Congress don't like people or want to hurt people. It is because they fundamentally believe that government is a negative force and therefore keeping it out of any constructive engagement with making our society better is better for the free market and for individuals. So there's a philosophical, ideological difference. I would suggest to you that deep, strongly held, fundamentalist views that will not compromise is a problem all over the world. You look what's happening in Syria and Iraq right now. There are people who believe that their views are so correct that any means they use to install a caliphate in that area of the world are justified. Democrats don't believe that. Democrats and Americans generally believe that you've got to have give and take. That's what democracy is about. We are not a dictatorship. One person's or one faction's views are not the only views that need to be considered or implemented. And in fact, what we found over the years is doing that makes the final decision better. Because collectively, over time, we make better decisions. The Congress is in gridlock. I want to talk about two things, and I'm going to stop pretty soon and answer some questions. There are two things that if I were the speaker, I would make as my priorities. And there are a lot of priorities that will come under them, but two things, and I'll talk about them all over the country. First of all, we need to get our country on a fiscally sustainable plan. You know, under Bill Clinton, we balanced the budget 4 years in a row. The only time in your lifetime, including my friend who's 90, maybe 91 or 92, but at least 90, the only time you have seen your budget as a country balanced 4 years in a row was under Bill Clinton. My Republican friends say to me, and you all remember this, my Republican friends say to me, oh, well, yes, of course, we took over the Congress in 1995. They did. And my immediate response was, well, that's interesting. But by the way, you took over everything in 2001. You had the President, the House, and the Senate. And immediately we went back into debt. And not only did we run up the deficit 87%, which was much lower than Ronald Reagan, who ran up the debt 189% from when he took office. Now, why do I say Ronald Reagan did it? There's one person in America can stop spending in its track, and only one. I can vote against spending, but I need 217 other people to go with me. The president just needs his veto signature. I've been in Congress now, it's my 34th year in the Congress of the United States. I'm 117, I lied. No president, and I've served with Ronald Reagan, George Bush I, Bill Clinton, George Bush II, and Barack Obama, 5 presidents. No president during my service in Congress has had a veto overridden of a bill that they said spent too much money. Not one. So both under Ronald Reagan, George Bush the first and George Bush the second, we exploded the deficit. So when your friends in the villages say, well, you know, these Democrats have just run this country into a deep, deep hole, you tell them that's baloney. Or whatever other words you want to use. But that is the mantra of their party. They believe they're the fiscally responsible party, and they are the most irresponsible party in the Congress of the United States now. They're often... We see ourselves as the party of the average person, trying to make workers' lives better. But I tell all of my colleagues, you want to be the party of workers? You darn well better be the party of employers. One nation. Not dividing. It's not, does business do some things I don't like? Does labor do some things I don't like from time to time? Yes, but we're in this together. And to the extent that businesses grow, jobs grow. To the extent that they make profits, they can pay better wages and provide better benefits. We're in this together. Not divided, but together. John Kennedy was elected President of the United States. I was 21 years of age. He was the first president I had the opportunity to work for. And he gave an extraordinary inaugural address in which he said, the energy, the faith, and devotion we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. I believed that in 1961. I believe it today. The energy and the faith and devotion each one of us brings to making America greater and better and more generous and more honest and more outreaching and more inclusive can light that lamp for which so many people came here. God bless you. Thank you.